Is that right? Yeah, but we can't start recording. Oh. Good afternoon, this is Peter Towers from ESS BIZTOOLS. Welcome to this webinar on ESS BIZGRANTS. I hope you're having a great day. What we're going to talk about today is assistance that you can obtain from being proactive in government grants. You can get assistance, of course, for your clients, but you can also identify some of the work that you might be able to do yourself. And we're going to have a feature of having a closer look at the Business Growth Grant. If you have any questions or comments during the webinar, can you please type your question or comment into your computer, and in webinar jargon, raise your hand, and I will look at the questions and comments and make a comment or give you an answer later on. So let's have a look at some of the key benefits to accountants and advisors from government grants. First of all, various surveys have indicated that small medium enterprises want accountants to be more proactive. In fact, David Smith, the Managing Director of Smith Inc. and a former President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants in Australia, was one of the key instigators in us preparing this product in the first place. And this came about because David was undertaking due diligence reviews of accountancy businesses who had indicated they were interested in joining one of the aggregators a couple of years ago. And David indicated that he was quite surprised that one of the most regular complaints that he was receiving from the clients of those accountants when he interviewed them as part of the due diligence process was that they were concerned that their accountants were not keeping them aware of government grants. And one of the things that really upset them was when they found out that one of their competitors had received a government grant and no one had told them about that grant. David Smith made the comment to me that accountants need to be proactive to identify the grants to their clients. He said it was an expectation that the SME clients had that accountants would keep them aware. And grants are great for SMEs so that they can receive a government grant, a subsidy on a project that they need doing. But it also can be a fantastic way for you as accountants to broaden your business advisory services activities, because there's many components of government grants that the work can be undertaken by accountants who are interested in offering business advisory services. That work can include business plans, strategic plans, debtors reviews, corporate governance reviews, lean management if you want to get involved in lean management reviews, mentoring of the management teams of businesses, corporate governance reviews. Just some of the tasks that I've undertaken under a government grant program. And I'm an accountant like you, so if I can do it, so can you. And there's some very interesting work that you can get involved in. Today we're going to look at a feature grant. It's one of the processes we have within ESS BIZGRANTS when we're looking at the grants that are available. Today the feature is the Business Growth Grant. So let's have a look at it. It's a fairly popular grant, and I think you'll see why when we go through and look at it. Eligibility, unfortunately, is only for companies and incorporated trustees, which are obviously companies as well, but acting as trustees of trusts. This has been a bit of a breakthrough. Slowly but surely, a number of federal government grants are changing their eligibility criteria so that trusts can be eligible. The way most of them are now going is as long as you've got an incorporated trustee. The minimum turnover for most businesses around Australia is $1.5 million, but if the business is located in Northern Australia, which is defined as the area north of the Tropic of Capricorn, which in Queensland is basically the city of Rockhampton, north, right across Australia, obviously, and remote locations. That shouldn't be removed. That's a typo. It should be remote and very remote locations. The minimum turnover is $750,000. So if you have clients north of the Tropic of Capricorn, anywhere in Queensland, Northern Territory or Northwest Western Australia, their turnover only needs to be $750,000. But then the government has these priority industries that they have then said that the businesses must be in one of these priority industries. So I'm just going to put them up on the screen. Advanced manufacturing, food and agri businesses, medical technologies and pharmaceuticals, mining equipment, technology and services, and oil, gas and energy resources. And in addition to that, businesses which supply enabling technologies or services, or are able to supply or planning to supply enabling technologies and services to any one of those 5 prime industry groups: advanced manufacturing, food and agri, medical technologies, mining equipment, technology and services, oil, gas and energy, from freight and logistics, infrastructure related construction, ICT, and professional services, which are mainly in the scientific area. Now, some people say to me, well, that's not many industries. Well, in actual fact, when you go through and really study the names of business types on the Australian Taxation Office business numbers, there's over 550 different types of businesses fit into this category. For argument's sake, freight and logistics basically covers freight companies, as long as there's a connection or a potential connection with any one of those 5 prime industries. And that's not that difficult to find that you've got a client in the freight industry who's doing something for one of those 5 industries. Infrastructure related construction can basically relate to any trades type business operating in Australia, as long as they're doing some work for one of those industries or proposing to do some work. The area that might be a bit restricted is the professional services, the scientific area. But there again, they are probably involved in something to do with those industries. So there's about 550 different types of businesses can be eligible for those this grant. So what's the grant? Well, it's not an enormous amount of money, but it's up to $20,000 on a 50% subsidy basis. So therefore, there's a pool of $40,000 to do some work. Now, the work's not all directed at accountants, of course. Your client might need a new workplace health and safety system implemented. They might need a factory design review. They might need a lean management course being conducted for their team. There's probably 101 different ways that you could spend that money. So what happens is there's an initial review by an entrepreneur program business advisor. There's about 94 of those persons around Australia. They're located in all of the capital cities, obviously, and then in the major regional cities serving the surrounding country areas around Australia. So they are able to be contacted. They conduct an initial free review on your client. They produce a report, and in that report they are identifying the activities that would be eligible for support under this program. Now, your client can influence what's in that report by having a in-depth conversation with the business advisor and identifying specific things that they would like to have undertaken. After all, they are paying 50%. And I'd suggest that you can also have some influence by working with your client beforehand and confirming to them some of the things they might need undertaking, like a budget, cash flow forecast, maybe some identification of the key performance indicators within the business, maybe a business plan project. So there's plenty of things that could be done under this funding. It has to be completed within 6 months. Unfortunately, there's no progress payments like there is in some of the other grants. So the client does have to bear the cost of the total project before he or she will receive their grant from the Commonwealth when it's finished. The application process, there is an application form online, and if you're using ESS BIZGRANTS, it will take you straight through to that application form, and then the business advisor will contact the applicant, which will be your client, of course. So that's how the business growth grant works. I'm just checking to see whether anyone's got any questions at this stage. If you have any questions on how the business growth grant operates and how you might be able to access it for your clients, can you please let me know. Within ESS BIZTOOLS, we have 7 separate papers on this grant as it applies to those various industry groups. So what I'm going to do now is just end this show for a while. We'll come back to that. And we are going to go on to the ESS BIZGRANTS website to give you an overview of how this system works. So when you first go to our site, this is what you will see. Promotional material. On the right-hand side here, we have a testimonial from David Smith, the gentleman I referred to earlier, Managing Director of Smith Inc. and a former President of the Institute of Chartered Accountants. This is a tool that should reside in every accountant's office. Few accountants are aware of the grants available to their clients. It's a minefield of federal, state, local, special purpose grants that seem to change almost daily. ESS BIZGRANTS has done the hard work in bringing together all this information in an easy-to-use application. If an accountant wants to make a client happy, get them some government money. ESS BIZGRANTS is a tool that can quickly help accountants quickly assess whether a client might be able to access a grant. David Smith. So we're going to log in. I'm just going to show you a partially completed application that we've worked on in the last week in a number of webinars. We called the business the Brisbane West Fabricators. I'll just get back to the beginning. So when you first go onto the site, you need to identify either the business's name or you can use a code if you wish, because we're using cloud technology. And we would like you to leave your data in the system so that next year it's only a quick update. You need to identify the entity group that the client is from, because there are grants for companies in virtually every situation that I can think of. But for some of these others, they're only eligible for some grants. So we need to identify in our test case, we're saying it's a company. We've asked questions, do they export? This business does. Do they import? We've said no. Number of employees, you need to identify the number of employees because the eligibility requirements for various grants varies. And we have these bands. In this hypothetical business, I should have told you that we had a turnover of 6.8 million. They've got 24 employees and they've been in business for 9 years. So they're in the 20 to 200 band. So we've already identified that. The years in business is also important because a number of grants have periods that the business needs to be operating for. More and more grants are now saying over 3 years. This business has been going for 9, so we've already identified over 3 years. Turnover is the other big question, and there are different bands. I said to you just a moment ago, this business has got a turnover of 6.8 million, and in the bands that we've identified here, 1.5 to 20 million is a band, and that's the one we've identified. Are you registered for GST? Businesses need to be registered for GST if they're going to obtain government grants. Are you tax exempt? If someone answers yes for that, the system won't show you any grants because ESS BIZGRANTS is designed for businesses, not for not-for-profits or charities. And are you involved in research and development? That doesn't specifically mean whether you're involved in what would be tax rebatable R&D, although in this case, of course, this applicant's a company. But it's generally just trying to find out whether the business has undertaken any sort of research and development activities, irrespective of whether they're able to claim it as an R&D rebate, because we're using the answer to this question as a link to determine whether they might be eligible for some other government grants, which would generally require businesses to have undertaken research and development as part of their process. So we're happy with all that. We're going to save that. In the address I've already filled in, this was a business in Ipswich. We had identified that its postcode was 4305, and the system has told us that Ipswich is in a major city of Australia. Some of these sort of classifications, like major cities, outer metropolitan, regional cities, etc., come into play in some of the grants. That's why that is in the system. The key word that we then needed to identify was, what does this business do? So we've used the keyword function to identify that they undertook sheet metal product work. If you know the number, and obviously that's the number there, if you know the number that applies to your client, you would just insert the number and you would then proceed. But if you don't know, you can enter some keywords and the system will identify the industry classifications that have that keyword included. So we've already done that. And we could then go to search grants. Now, I indicated before we've been looking at this one as a partially completed application of utilizing this system. So we already have 7 that we've identified as being potentially eligible grants. And I'm going to come back to those in a moment. And we've also identified that there were some potentially ineligible when we went through the process. So we'll go back and look at what's left here in pending. And for the next series of webinars, I'm going to have to start a new program. So what we might pick on is research connections, advanced manufacturing, just to show you how the system works. So you would click on there, you get a grant detail or an executive summary of how this grant operates. I'd be interested how many of you know this grant exists. So again, it is targeted at the business growth grant eligibility requirement of 1.5 million minimum turnover, Northern Australia and remote and very remote, 750,000. So this is a special research grant that's available. So we're happy with that. You've looked at that and you want to now see the funding. The funding is up to $50,000 on a 50-50 basis. So a project could be costing nearly $100,000. The client can get 50% of it. We have what we call an application toolkit, which if you want to read the paper which we have produced on how Research Connections works, you can click onto the paper. And get some background knowledge as to how this grant operates. So you might read that and you say, okay, I think this suits our client that we're looking at this for. And we're then able to move into additional criteria. So what we are trying to do is to use a flute to narrow down the potential for someone to be eligible. And we then need to ask them some additional questions. Is the applicant a company or a corporate trustee? Well, we've said we're a company. Can the applicant fund all the project prior to receiving the government grant? This grant's the same as the business growth grant. The client would have to spend the full, if they were getting the full $50,000 as a grant, the full $100,000 without receiving any grant money. There's no progress payments on this grant. So we say yes. And are they operating within the advanced manufacturing industries? Incidentally, there is a grant like this for research for each of those 5 prime industries in the business growth grants. So they're in the required industry. We'll say yes. The system is now brought up apply now, and if we click on that, that will take us to the URL of the applicable department so that we could start the application process. That takes a bit of time, so we won't do that. If we hit close, what the system is now doing is determining whether we might be eligible in that area. So we started off, we had 10 pending, we've now got 9. And if we go to potentially eligible, where I expect it to be, and there's the Research Connections Advanced Manufacturing in the system. If you want to have a look at details on any of these other grants, it's just a matter of clicking on them, and there's the grant detail summary, and you can repeat the process that I've just been through. So when you have completed, and obviously we're not in a webinar, we're not going to go back and look at the rest of those that were identified, but you can see there was quite a number of grants identified for this particular business. We now want to produce a grant report. The grant report has the name of the client. Prepared by would be your name as the subscriber. The report is dated, and the report includes a executive summary on each of the grants that have been identified. The first one here is Accelerating Commercialisation. It's the largest grant available in Australia, $1 million on a 50% basis. It's a very popular grant. The basic criteria is it can be any type of entity can originally apply, as long as the turnover is under $20 million, but the turnover could be nil. And quite a number of applicants do have a nil turnover. They have spent a fair bit of time in undertaking research and development in a particular project. But the requirement is that if the applicant is intending to proceed with the formal application, and if they are offered a grant, they must immediately incorporate a company so that the recipient of the grant money will be a company. The fine print is basically saying, and obviously you would be able to read that, is that no one's guaranteeing to the applicant that they're going to get a grant. They've still got to go through the application process. There could be reasons the grant funding might have been exhausted and the government hasn't bothered changing the website. The client may have been a previous grant participant, and for some reason there's some outstanding issues that are making the government a bit reluctant to grant the applicant a further grant. Some of these things you might not know when you're advising a client, but you find out when the application goes in. So there's the report that the client's going to receive. Our suggestion is that you automatically prepare the client profile as you complete every business client's annual accounts and tax return. It will take 2 to 3 minutes to enter that data into the system that I showed you at the beginning. Sure, it will take 5 or 6, maybe 10 minutes to answer some of the questions, and you may have to consult the client on that, but all you're trying to get at this stage is an indicative report so that in a very proactive manner you can have a conversation with your client and identify that you have been thinking about them and you have identified these grants that they might be eligible for. So you submit the application, you submit the report to them. The next question is, who's going to prepare the applications? The vast majority of SMEs will ask you to do that, and our recommendation is that you indicate you're opening a separate fee file and you will bill them separately for this work. Some people ask me on what basis, percentage of the grant. That's up to you, but I wouldn't. Most accountants that are doing this work are just charging on your normal charge out rate basis. It's a normal professional job. You can do it otherwise and do it on percentages if you wish, but clients get a bit nervous of that. And in the spirit of what's happening in a number of other things, such as financial planning area, I think it should just be a straight fee that you're charging your client. Then if the client is successful in that application, they will then be required to decide how they're going to proceed to utilise the grant money. Obviously, there's a summary included in the application. And if you wish to participate in some of that work, you will have to submit a quotation. That's unfortunately part of the process with grants. And there will be some of the grants require 2 quotes. Doesn't necessarily mean that if someone else is cheaper than you, they're going to get the work. The government is very keen to encourage greater links between SMEs and professional advisors. So if you undertake the work, just bear in mind there is going to be another quote, and it's going to be looked at by the business advisor representing the government. Those people are in the main drawn from private enterprise, and they are keen to have these links between advisors and SMEs continue and be maintained. So you should get the job, all things being equal. So that's how ESS BIZGRANTS operates. Our suggestion is that you leave the profile in the system, and next year it's just a matter of quickly updating the client profile and some other information. and you're then in a position to, in a very proactive manner, be servicing your clients. So I'm just going back onto our PowerPoint slides. We've talked about the application. Your investment in ESS BIZTOOLS. This is a demonstration webinar for firms that are interested in subscribing. So we have to have a commercial. Your 12 months, 24/7 access to ESS BizGrants per office. You can have as many authors as you like. We are continuing our discounted price at this stage for a couple more months, $450 excluding GST upfront for 12 months, or you can pay it at $43 per month for 12 months. If you elect to be a subscriber to ESS BizTools Gold package, you automatically receive a subscription to ESS BizGrants. You can avail yourself of a 14-day trial period of ESS BizGrants. So I'll just go back onto the website to show you where that is. And so when you first go onto the website, which is the page I showed you at the very beginning, you can click Start Free Trial, which is for 14 days for you to process a couple of your clients to see how the system works. You need to be given a username and a password, so we need to get some details from you so you can insert them into the system and then submit, and you'll be able to utilize ESS BizGrants within your office. So for any further information you would like on ESS BizGrants, you can please contact us. You can visit the website. And I'm just going to check now if there's any questions. We don't seem to have any. So thank you very much for participating in this webinar today. If you think of some questions later on that you'd like to have some answers for, please give us a phone call or send us an email, and we will get a response back to you. We do really look forward to welcoming your firm as a subscriber to ESS BizGrants. If you're attending the ATSA conference in Sydney in a couple of weeks' time at the Hilton Hotel, I will be there, and we will be demonstrating ESS BizGrants and ESS BizTools over those 2 days. We're at stand C6, so please come and talk to us, make yourself known, and I'll give you a complete run through of the system. We are running regular webinars for ESS BizTools as well, and full details are on our website. So we do look forward to hearing from you subsequent to this webinar. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.